It's been a few episodes now, but for those listening for the first time, I have my first sponsor, and I could not think of a better one than mempool.space, a fantastic Bitcoin block explorer. Mempool Space is becoming much more than your traditional block explorer. It is becoming a multi-layer explorer from layer 0 mempool, layer 1 blockchain, layer 2s like Lightning and Liquid, and a lot more. We're still using Wiz's mempool here at the park, but like most things in my life, I'm moving towards free and open source software. And you get that with this Bitcoin Block Explorer. So you do not need to trust Wiz's mempool, i.e. mempool.space. You can easily host it yourself. More to come on this front at the park in 2023, especially in May of 2023, when we host basically Mempool Month here at the park. So give it a shot yourself at mempool.space.
And there's one scene in one of the episodes of that docu-series where Jimmy Iovine, he's talking, he gets asked, what did you think of the competition? He was like, I didn't think about it. When you're in this game, you got to be like a racehorse with blinders on. And you don't look at the person on your left, you don't look at the person on your right. You don't worry about what they're doing, just focus on what you're doing. And I took that to heart. I think it came out right when I started the newsletter. And I sort of have been applying that mental model to what I do. I don't want to try to compete with anybody or listen to somebody else's content, read somebody else's content, and have that affect what I'm doing. I just want to purely bring my thoughts and my way of producing the content to the world.
Welcome to the Builders in Bitcoin podcast, a podcast about the people who bring Bitcoin to life. I'm your host, Rod, and I go by the handle BitKite on Twitter. I had the pleasure of sitting down with my good friend, Marty Bent, founder of TFTC and stalwart defender of Bitcoin. It would be hard to overstate Marty's influence on the Bitcoin community, not just from his content creation, but also from his work and influence in the mining space and the venture world. In this episode, we discuss and dig into building local community at places like Bitcoin Park in Nashville and Bitcoin Commons in Austin, Marty's growing media presence, investing in Bitcoin-focused companies with Ten31, mining in the great state of Tennessee, and a lot more. I really enjoyed my conversation with Marty and know you will too. So let's just jump right in. Marty Bent, welcome. How the heck are you?
I'm doing well. The tables have turned here.
The tables have turned. I now get to spend the next 60 minutes max and ask all the questions and bring up the stories that I want to bring up. No, I'm just joking. But dude, I can't thank you enough for not only coming to Nashville, but joining me for Builders in Bitcoin.
Well, I can't thank you enough for being as good of a friend as you have been throughout the years and for starting this wonderful place known as the Bitcoin Park.
Yeah, man. Knock on wood. If we continue a year from now, it'll be really interesting to see what we've developed here. And it'll be really cool because between me, you, Matt, and Parker, some of the stuff that between Commons and the park, I think that if we can execute on half of it, it'll be pretty badass for 2023.
Yeah. We had a big Bitcoin Commons meeting yesterday. It was like a 3 or 4 hour meeting.
Whoa.
Me, Parker, Kaylee, and a couple other members of the Commons, just talking about how we want to event plan in 2023. And we're going to have some cool programming next year. And Matt Odell's going to have to join us. He just walked into the studio.
Yeah.
LeBron walked in charge.
Hey, can I give him one of these?
Matt doesn't get shoot.
Matt does not get shoot. He did shoot me, by the way. I actually was thinking about it.
Well, I asked him to.
Oh, did you? Oh man, that's good. That's good. Speaking of, and this is a good segue, the natural people that walk in to the park and also will be able to walk in to the Commons is our unfair advantage in terms of building a community. When I visited, I want to say a month ago, and we did the pod, it was so dang cool. I mean, I was busy for those 48 hours just meeting with just friends, Bitcoiners, people, and it was a whirlwind. And if you guys are doing this, and as you guys continue to do this, getting those folks involved in the Commons in that space will be freaking awesome.
Yeah, the vibe's always energetic in the Commons, and especially during weeks where we have events at night, whether it's a Bit Devs meetup, Austin Bitcoin Club meetup, the Lightning Devs meetup, Bitcoin Design meetup. the days of those meetups are the best because the Commons is full. You know, people coming in from all over, not only the country but the world. If they're in town, they're going to stop by the Commons. It's an unfair advantage.
Yeah, totally. And then, so I'll say this. So you have the studio in the Commons, which is also awesome. So by the way, anyone who's thinking about visiting, go visit Austin and go visit Marty and knock on his door and go see his studio. It is super high quality. I think Kaylee set that up for you, yeah?
Kaylee and I worked very closely together, and Parker. I have to give Parker some props here too on designing that studio. We're a bit space constrained, so we had to get some creative thinking going to fit everything in there and make it feel comfortable.
Yeah, we're still bootstrapping it here, as you can see with all the wiring, and Tom's been bootstrapping, and our producer here. We're gonna get there sooner than later.
But this is like a purpose-built room for recording. It's perfect.
Yes, we are very thankful for that. It's funny, people are like, they come in and immediately think like, "Oh my God, how much Bitcoin did you guys spend on all the decking it out?" I'm like, actually, the only thing we spent money on was those dang piece of shit chairs that are in that, which is funny. But dude, let me ask the first question that I really want to ask. You now, it has been awesome to see, starting with TFTC. Now you're a venture partner or partner at 1031.
Partner, yes.
Awesome. And shout out to those guys. I can go on a tangent and speak about those guys and how awesome they are. And then also, you're a co-founder of a mining company.
Mm-hmm. Standard Bitcoin.
Standard Bitcoin. So if someone asks you, like, off the street, like, what do you do? How do you answer that?
I've had to answer this question a lot recently due to the fact that I've been meeting a lot of my oldest sons, classmates, parents, and it's. I always say, like, I run a media company and I'm a partner at a venture capital firm. When I'm going to them, like, I keep Bitcoin on the back end if they ever delve deeper. Like, oh, what type of media? What type of venture capital?
Are you on Twitter? Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I am. Please don't look at it. I want my son to be able to
get into schools,
meet up with your kids, and get into schools moving forward. But yeah, no, it is weird. Like, what do I do? Yeah, I run a media company. I'm a partner at a venture capital firm, focused on Bitcoin. Like, once they like dive deeper, like, oh, what do you do? It's like, focus on Bitcoin, and then inevitably like, oh, crypto, it's crazy. I'm like, not crypto, like Bitcoin. I'm very focused on Bitcoin specifically. I always say I think crypto is noise.
Yeah, one area, and not to jump in, but when they say the word crypto or so on, I'll be like, look, I actually know almost nothing about crypto. And I know a little bit about Bitcoin, the monetary network, the capital B, as well as the asset, the lowercase b. But if you have any Bitcoin questions, I'm happy to answer. But crypto, I just don't know.
Yeah. Like last night, I was telling you, my wife and I took our oldest on like a walking lights tour in the park in Austin, and we ran into one of our neighbors and their kids, and he walked up. He's like, "Oh, FTX, are you doing okay?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm doing fine." I was not involved with FTX. None of the companies I'm associated with were holding assets at FTX. We've been actually calling FTX out for a while.
It's funny, like, I'll go, even though we have the best coffee here at the park, I wake up too early to come to the park and do it myself. So I'll go and get a cup of coffee around like 4 or 5 a.m. And the barista, who knows me now, I'm like disheveled, tired. And he's like, "Rod, are you okay?" I'm like, "What? No, it's just early. I need my coffee." He's like, "No, I heard Bitcoin collapsed." I'm like, "Bitcoin, yeah, the Bitcoin, the capital B monetary network is fine." "Oh, you're talking about FTX?" Like, yeah. I'm like, okay. Bitcoin's $16,000 right now.
It's closer to 17 now.
Oh, let's go. I'm like, and that's the one thing I keep bringing up to people. I'm like, it's $16,000 a coin. Like, that's still pretty significant if you really think about it. If you've been in long enough, I'm like, it still boggles my mind. And then I kind of do the quick, like, less than 30-second explainer on Bitcoin, not crypto. And then I'm like, Thanks for the coffee. Talk later. Come to our meetup page, bitcoinpark.co. See ya. Yeah, I know. And it's like that meme. It's like, it's also tiresome or tiring or whatever with the
Yeah, it's
guy.
also tiresome.
Yeah. But I will say, like, the folks that are consistent, especially folks that are building content and creating content from scratch like you have been consistently for so long. Like, not to blow smoke up your ass, but dude, you have the best Bitcoin focused media company in the world. And your daily newsletter, your TFTC podcast, and then your weekly show with Matt, Rabbit Hole Recap, is like a must listen show. So like there's 3 Rabbit Hole Recap must listen every week. Like I tune in and I'm like, all right, looking for that download. I'll dox myself, but the All In podcast I listen to pretty much every week as well.
I've started listening to that recently just to see how that side of the market talks.
Sachs is based. Freeberg is pretty based. Chamath comes with like interesting points, but it's very like, VC narrative driven. And then Calican is, is what it is. It is what it is. But it's just good to like catch up on what is kind of happening in the world, because I don't watch any TV, nor do I subscribe to any New York Times or any of that BS now. In my humble opinion, you do your own research, by the way. So it's just like a good way to recap. It's similar to Bitcoin, like your guys going in. I mean, it's freaking 2.5 hours, pretty much, but it's like awesome to like, on commutes, on walks, on whatever, just to catch up on what I potentially have been missing, even though my time, capital, and reputation is all in on Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, I'm incredibly lucky, as you know, because you work with him closely as well, to have Matt as a co-host and a partner for Rabbit Hole Recap. Lucky that we lived right around the corner from each other in Brooklyn when we first started the show, and were able to meet up in person and really hone our craft and develop a rapport and become brothers, essentially. And it's been a Rabbit Hole Recap is something I look forward to every week.
That's awesome. And that's what you really want. It's funny, like when I was telling Matt I wanted to do this Builders in Bitcoin podcast, and you're going to come on Pod 256 right after this with Tom, your co-founder on Standard Bitcoin. And then I'm doing this policy weekly show. Just there's a whole another purpose there. But I'm doing all these podcasts, and then Matt comes in. He's like, Rod, you're the most bougie podcaster ever. You have the best Bitcoin podcasting studio. You have one of the best producers to help you produce and edit the shows and get them out there. Me and Marty back in the day, our mics wouldn't work half the time. We forget to record. We do all these things.
My wife would walk in the middle of the episode.
I remember
like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah. Dinner's ready. But going on the content side, because I think we've seen a proliferation, and we'll go into all 3 of those. So media, investing, and mining. But specifically on the media side, we've seen a proliferation, it feels like, of Bitcoin-focused content, which I think is great, but also crypto content. I'm curious to know from your opinion, because, and we could bring up some of these stories, a lot of people have been inspired by you and Matt to kind of, including myself, by the way, to find a voice or have a voice and then actually put it out there. What do you think about all the content that's being created?
I think, so I will say this, maybe people will I don't know if people get offended by this. I think it's great that all the content's being created. I don't listen to any of it.
Yeah.
Or watch any of it. And this is just part of my strategy that I've always implemented. Like I'll listen, like I'll give, like Citadel Dispatch is like the only one when I really want to dive into like a technical conversation. Like I'll listen to Citadel Dispatch. But outside of that, I've always had this mentality for my own product. Did you ever watch the Jimmy Iovine Dr. Dre documentary on HBO?
Way back in the day.
And there's one scene in one of the episodes of that docuseries where Jimmy Iovine, he's talking like he gets asked like, what did you think of the competition? He was like, I didn't think about it. Like when you're in this game, you got to be like a racehorse with blinders on, and you don't look at the person on your left, you don't look at the person on your right, you don't worry about what they're doing, just focus on what you're doing. And I took that to heart. I think it came out like right when I started
Hell yeah.
the newsletter, and I sort of have been applying that mental model to what I do. Like, I don't want to try to compete with anybody or listen to somebody else's content, read somebody else's content, and have that affect what I'm doing. I just want to purely bring my thoughts and my way of producing the content to the world, without like worrying about what other people are doing or like trying to compete with them or outcompete them.
Totally understand. And I will say this, like the pie continues to grow larger so that people can find, because I do think you have a unique voice and unique perspective where a lot of people love it. Some people may not, have the vibe for TFTC but that doesn't mean you don't need an all-encompassing podcast, meaning all-encompassing Bitcoin-focused podcast where you may have somebody in the other spectrum. Like, for example, by the way, you went on Glenn Beck's show. That was pretty freaking dope, by the way.
It was a fun experience.
How did you walk me through that whole process?
Well, I've developed a good relationship with the CEO of Blaze Media, which is Glenn's media company. He's the CEO of Blaze is into Bitcoin. His name's Tyler, and he started reading the newsletter, listening to the podcast, and we started like a DMing relationship, and then we eventually met in person over the summer in Austin, and he was my internal champion at Blaze to get on Glenn, so that's how I got my foot in the door. I went up to do another one of their podcasts, Stu Does America, a couple months ago, and was able to meet Glenn in person and had like a 20 to 30 minute conversation with him and Tyler. And we had a really good relationship. He was surprisingly like really approachable, very down to earth, not pompous at all. And we had a good conversation about Bitcoin and civil liberties in today's day and age, because he's a really big like revolutionary history buff and really loves the Constitution. So we riffed on that. And then, during that conversation, he was like, I want you to come on the show. And so like a couple weeks later, I was back in Dallas on his show.
I will say this, like when you are listening to a personality or reading a personality's tweets or newsletters and so on, and then meeting that person in person is like almost a night and day experience. I feel like even like comedians and other people, not night and day. It's just like, it's not 100% the person they are. Like, I don't think you bring your whole Marty Bent, Marty Jones self to your kid's preschool, do you?
No, definitely not. And that's the other thing. Like, the Marty Bent, Marty Jones, it's a way for me it's like a cathartic release on, a cathartic and creative release for me to get some of these thoughts I have in my mind, like out to the world via different mediums.
Yeah. And so going back to kind of like, what you're doing. So you got this great media company that is just humming now. And then you decided to go into the investing world and become a partner at 1031. I have my own personal, I'm not calling you an influencer. You're my boy. But it's like a lot of these influencer VCs have popped up, right? Either they started a podcast or they're going into podcasting and then building up, and then they make a lot of investments, and then a lot of those investments now are like, a Tom Brady with FTX, a Pomp with BlockFi and so on. And it just like comes crashing down in a bad way. So, two-part question. One is, did you ever think you were going to be a partner at an investing firm? One. And then two, where do you see the landscape of investing in Bitcoin, out of curiosity?
Did I ever see myself? I never knew, I always knew I wanted to get back into finance. And I wouldn't even know if we consider venture capital the type of finance I was doing out of college, but I've always been enamored with investing and those types of topics. And so I didn't really ever see myself becoming a venture capitalist, and it's still weird to even hear that phrase come out of my mouth, but been around Bitcoin for a while. Developed a good relationship with Matt. Obviously, we've been business partners for 4.5 years now. and then have developed a good relationship with Michael Tanguma, who's another partner at 1031, and then got the pleasure of meeting Grant and Jonathan, who are the founders of 1031, last year and developing a rapport with them. And it was a bit serendipitous in how it all came together. And yeah, I never really saw myself like becoming a venture capitalist, but I think what happened was like I've been writing and producing podcast about the space for over 5 years now, and that's one thing that always pissed me off is like you see all these crypto projects get hundreds of millions collectively billions of dollars worth of funding, and it's obvious to me that they're all short-term pump and dumps that aren't going to be around for a while, and I would even argue that they may be a bit immoral and that they lead people astray from the true signal, which is Bitcoin. And then via the podcast specifically, like having many individuals who are working on the core protocol, who are building businesses on the space, who are thinking about Bitcoin from a macroeconomic perspective for years. And some of the smartest people I've ever met have come through my studio, proverbial studio. And it just always shocked me that it was very hard for Bitcoin companies to raise money, considering how foundational they will be moving into the future. And so, considering my background in finance and economics and the fact that I've been around Bitcoin for 9 years now, which is hard to believe, and feel like I have a good grasp on the space and know where the signal is and know, or I won't say I know, I like to think I have a good idea of where things are going to develop in terms of custody, lightning, hardware, mining,
Totally.
all that stuff. It just made sense to me. The opportunity presented itself, and it's a really good opportunity to work with really good people. It's Matt, Michael, Jonathan, Grant, and then not only work together with them, but work together towards bringing about what we're all extremely passionate about, which is ushering the world into a Bitcoin standard and doing it how we deem to be the right way by supporting the companies who are doing it the right way in our perspective. And it's the right way is not always the easiest, fastest way, like it was in crypto, where you could raise money and get a 10x in less than a year, 100x in less than 2 years. Really focused on the foundational base layer of the new monetary and financial system that would be built upon Bitcoin.
A couple keywords that came out of that, and that was awesome. The relationships that you've been able to build so that you can trust as best possible to then spend your time with these folks. And in a VC type relationship, you definitely your incentivized and your outcome is financially driven, which is great. But this seems like more it's purpose driven, which aligns to your core beliefs in helping Bitcoin-focused entrepreneurs build the things that you want to see built. So you mentioned all of those different areas, from Lightning, signing devices, to mining, to whatever else. And they all come by your TFTC, they come by your DMs and so on. And then you get to play a role in helping finance or stimulate these folks to get from 0 to 1 or 1 to 10. And that's freaking dang cool. Conversely, you mentioned on the crypto side, like crypto VCs or VCs in general, it's like looking to quickly do the media side first, prop them up, big flashy press release, and get a bunch of buzz without the actual stake there. And I feel like you guys are concentrating on the stake first and then providing the sizzle later on down the line.
Yeah, and that's, again, this is all serendipitous, and it's like one of those things where you put your head down, you write a newsletter, you do a podcast, you talk to as many people in the industry as possible, and you develop trust with them, where they're like, hey, I want to come on your podcast because I think you know what you're talking about and can really get the signal out of me and get my message out to the world. And that's another part of 1031 in our value prop, is the fact that a lot of these Bitcoin-only companies want Bitcoiners as investors, as capital providers, where up until recently, that's been a great theme over the last year, is more Bitcoin specific venture funds and funds out there. So there's more capital. There could certainly be a lot more, but up until about last year, there was very few funds that founders could go to raise money from that wouldn't pressure them to increase revenue by doing something in shitcoin land, which if you're a Bitcoiner who truly gets the signal, understand that all of that is noise. You don't want to corrupt your company with that type of capital.
The amount of intellectual or mental debt that you have to provide just to even entertain the blockchain crypto land or even higher, or it just weighs you down, even if the money is quote unquote too good, in my humble opinion. And being able to be just Bitcoin focused and have the enough capital. You don't need exuberant amount of capital. You just need enough capital, have a lean team, and ship. We're going to, especially in this quote unquote bear market, I think we're going to see a lot. Builders build in the bear market, and I think we're going to see a lot of really cool stuff emerge.
Oh, it's happening. I've seen it.
Yeah. What's one really cool thing that you've kind of it's been on your radar that you're like, whoa, this is pretty dope? Not to put you on the spot with one specific thing.
I mean, podcasting 2.0 is just because I'm very intimately connected to it, just because I've been leveraging it for more than a year now. But I mean, that it's not only podcasting 2.0 specific, but I think what podcasting 2.0 is really opened people's eyes up to the different ways in which you can monetize content. Not just podcasting, but there's people building companies around monetizing music in a similar fashion, monetizing written content, monetizing video content. Companies like Vita, Wavelake, they're doing really cool stuff.
Yep.
Fountain, obviously, is really pushing the forward. I mean, that stuff fascinates me incredibly. I think it's always fascinated me. That's why Unchained has always been a sponsor of the podcast. They were the first sponsor, and I'm proud that they've supported me up until this point, and will continue that relationship moving forward, because they've always been one of the companies where I'm like, hey, these guys get it. They're building out these new products the correct way, which is leveraging Bitcoin's native properties, specifically multi-sig. If we do truly go to a Bitcoin standard, a lot of companies like BlockFi have been applying incumbent financial system models to Bitcoin, where Unchained is applying Bitcoin design to a new financial system.
You mentioned the value for value podcasting 2.0, which is totally right. Like, you as being an entrepreneur and building now 3 different basically companies, or helping build 3 different companies in 3 different spaces. When young people come up and they're like, hey, where should I spend my time? Or what's one piece of advice you'd give me? Multiple revenue streams early on and often is so important. You just don't want to be dependent on one person that just says, hey, you did great, buddy. I made some bad decisions. I got to cut you now, you know, and so on. So that's mission critical.
Multiple sats flows, freaks.
And that's one area. And Tom, as we got to get our podcasting 2.0 like humming.
I thought you were going to say we have to get it set up. I was going to be like, it's not set up yet.
No. We got it loosely, but we got it just like a lot of things. Like, believe it or not, I mean, and Tom's like shaking his head. Like, I got this podcast, which is awesome. I love doing these. These are just like so therapeutic to me to like talk with my friends for an hour, and we record it and then put it out in the into the world, which is pretty dope. And then doing some of the more passion, like Pod 256 and This Week in Bitcoin and Policy. It just now creating systems. And I'm actually curious, like, especially, you know, we talk about your time. Like, how do you manage your time across all 3 of these? And are there any, like, is there like one best practice you're like, oh yeah, you know, meditate for 3 hours, Rod, and you'll be rocking? Not that, but I don't know if there's like one thing you would, piece of advice.
I'm not going to lie. This year, after joining 1031, starting Standard Bitcoin, we're trying, actually, I started another company too, which has been in quasi-stealth mode, which is, we're calling it ScribSat right now, subject to change, but we're productizing our Ghost BTC Pay server implementation and spinning that out for people so that they can connect BTC Pay server and Ghost very easily and monetize over the Lightning Network their written content, their newsletters. It will be open source as well, but for people who don't want to download the code and do that from scratch, we'll have a prettier service for them. Beyond that, though, like I had my second child this year as well.
But man.
Most importantly,
Yes.
I had my second son joined us in the world, and so my life's been crazy chaotic this year. And I'm not going to lie, a couple months ago, it was getting a bit overwhelming. Where like I really didn't have a good. I was just like waking up and like, all right, what do I need to do today? And like that for a while there after my son's birth, it was just like, wake up, what do I need to do? Look at my schedule, like not really prepare as well as I could have been. And so like last month, I got back to something I was doing before I started the newsletter, and as always starting the newsletter and the podcast, but I stopped doing it when my first son was born almost 3 years ago, which is journaling every day, writing down and keeping a list. And for me personally, maybe it doesn't work for everybody, but just re-implementing that into my daily flow of I put the date down, the day, the month, the year, and then the price of Bitcoin. It's funny going back and reading my journals from like 2014, 2015, and like what my thoughts were back then. But yeah, then I have like a notes section where I literally just like journal. It's like Dear Diary. Not Dear Diary, but like I try to remember what I did.
Dear Satoshi.
Yeah. I just like try to put down on paper what I did the day before, what I did with my family, what I did with my business, and then like at the end say like, all right, here's what I need to get done, and then create a to-do list. And that has helped me immensely get back into a clear head state to handle all the balls that I'm juggling right now.
I love that. I'm actually going to take some inspiration and get on journaling. There's two things I want to do. I do a lot, but there's two things I really want to do. One is journaling, because people that say they journal, it's like a huge unlock. And also taking cold showers. I just cannot get my body into a cold shower like to save my life.
It's got to get past the first 5 seconds.
I know.
Not that I cold shower every day, but
yeah,
every once in a while I'll be like, all right, prove you're a man.
Yeah, I know. I've done those like cryo chambers, which are fine, but just like, I think it's like I have the option to have hot water here. I'm very privileged and lucky. Why the hell am I going to do a cold shower right now, even though it's better for my body to like activate a bunch of stuff and it's like proven, whatever. But thank you for that. Honestly, like one person gave me advice on OMAD, 1 meal a day, and I've taken that to heart, and it's changed me. One person told me about like hot yoga, and now I'm doing like hot yoga to increase my flexibility, and I've added that to my own personal system. I need to figure out a way, and I'm going to hold myself accountable on this journaling side, because you're not. You're one of many people I find for inspiration and look to. I'm like, oh yeah, look, the output is there, and here's one of the inputs that he's used. Oh yeah, like Control C, Control V, just copy. And by the way, that's another pro tip for anyone who's young out there. Not only multiple revenue streams, go and look at people that are like real successful, not like, have big followings and are just like influencers, but don't actually build stuff. Look at the people that have influence plus they've built stuff like Marty, and then figure out like what are some of the simple things that they do day in, day out. And if journaling's one, it's just like a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's very simple too. And your journal doesn't have to be long every day. You just literally write 3 things down, then a to-do list. But it's incredible how much it brings clarity in terms of, because you can go back and you look. It's like that when you're juggling so many balls in the air. Like there was like over the summer, beginning of fall, there was a couple instances where I completely forgot about a call or something. I was like, that's just untenable. I have to get back to basics. And I was thinking like, what could I do? And I was like, oh, I should probably start journaling again, because that helped me. I started when I was unemployed before I started the newsletter, just as a way to like think of new ideas of what to do. And it helped me out a lot back then. Helped me get out of a rough spot, and led me. I would argue it integral part in leading me to where I am today. Just literally having conversations with yourself on paper.
I love that. Especially if those folks that maybe are recently laid off or looking for inspiration to go and find the next purpose or next career move for you. This is a great way to start. We'll jump into mining and I'm going to come back to this. So, okay, you got arguably the best Bitcoin-focused media company. You guys arguably have the best Bitcoin-focused investment firm. And now you're building a mining company. And I'm going to, now we've already discussed this and it's public. You guys are mining in the great state of Tennessee.
Yes, we are. I'm bullish on Tennessee.
Let's go.
Everybody's going to Texas. Even though I live there, I'm coming to Tennessee to mine Bitcoin. And I can't, and we should make this clear. I did co-found and get Standard Bitcoin off the ground. I do play my part, but the engine behind Standard Bitcoin is Tom.
Oh yeah, big brain, I love that guy. You and him are going to come on Pod 256 right after this, and I'm super excited about that. Not to show the podcast, but like and I'll let you jump in right after this, but I want to say this about Tom. Tom's one of those guys. I met him, I think a year ago or maybe a little bit longer than that. He's been in Bitcoin. You can see the dirt underneath his fingernails. He's been in it for a long time, on grid, off grid. And he comes to our Bitcoin mining meetups. I think he's been to every single one that we've done. And the amount of institutional knowledge that he has is amazing. And I'm just very lucky to call him a friend, and also that he's deciding to spend a portion of his time, capital, and reputation building mining infrastructure, or as he likes to say, grid stabilization here in the great state of Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love working with Tom. So we started working together, right? He actually is the one who came to me while I was at Barstool. He read the newsletter, listened to the podcast.
No way.
He DM'd me and sort of dragged me into the mining world. He was like, what are you doing? I know you're at Barstool, but you're obviously very into Bitcoin. Like, you should be working in Bitcoin. And he sort of dragged me along into what came to be Great American Mining. And so we've been working very closely since then. And we learned a lot of lessons at Great American Mining. And I think one thing that Tom and I have in common is just we're insatiably curious. Like I never fell down the Bitcoin mining rabbit hole until I got to Great American Mining. And then once I was there and it was like, let's learn about mining, I dove deep down, and Tom's very similar in that regard. And so we were falling down the rabbit hole together, learning about all the intricacies of Bitcoin mining, particularly off-grid, upstream on an oil and gas well, and meeting people in the industry and developing relationships. And when we both left GAM last year, we basically said, hey, like, you're moving to Tennessee. There's natural gas all around you. Like, we need to buy a hash hut, just do stranded gas for ourselves, just to have that.
Yeah.
Since we're not at Great American Mining anymore. And then that turned into a company. And now we're doing off-grid stuff still with stranded natural gas wells, but then we've also stumbled into this on-grid play, which we're really excited about as well.
Yeah, man. Even in this bear market where the hash price is like getting compressed quite a bit, it's similar to going back to the influencer VC. I think they're going to get washed out, and then there's going to be the really high quality, just in general, VC investors and venture investors that are going to be high quality, high ethics, high morals, and then that they add immediate value to the business and have more of a lower time preference. Same thing is happening in the mining space. The folks that were like, oh, I can make this amount of money this quickly. Let's go and build and invest and do futures orders on machines and blah, blah. Oh, by the way, let's go leverage our Bitcoin position. Oh, let's go leverage our ASICs. Oh, number just go up always and hash rate will stay kind of, steady. I think those folks we're going to see, you're going to get completely wiped out. And then you're going to see quality miners like Standard Bitcoin, like Tom and yourself, continue to just hit those singles, hit a couple doubles, and then continue to compound and build and build and build.
Yeah. No, it's mining. I mean, I wrote about it earlier this week after the downward difficulty adjustment. It's ruthless capitalism. It is. not for the faint of heart. There's so many different variables at play. There's so many unknowns that you run into. There's so many punches in the face that you just have to be able to eat and keep on going.
I kind of butchered this when I was a guest on your pod. Not butchered it, but I was like explaining like how it's a multi-level game of different games like Go, chess, checkers, where you're playing simultaneously. And you don't even know a couple games like have the complete information on the rules of those other games. And you got to play to win at all times.
Yeah.
And that's Bitcoin mining. It is not for the faint of heart. Like, sure, the first step I would recommend anyone who wants to get into mining, go buy a piece of shit S9, go and break it down, build it back up, plug it into your wall, point it to a pool, learn about Bitcoin mining. And then from there, when you know all those different variables from your electricity cost to the efficiency of the miner, to the amount of hash that it's generating, to like the difficulty adjustment, which you need to know inside and out as well. Then if you're like, okay, cool, I want to go and invest and build or go and get a hosted solution, you could definitely look at those trade-offs as well, or go invest in a standard Bitcoin or build it yourself. Start with the basics.
Yes. And there's so much to learn. There's so many variables at play, and it's crazy how much I've learned. It's crazy how much you learn about the world via mining. You have to learn about energy, you learn about off-grid, on-grid, different grid systems in the United States, different. When we were doing Great American Mining, like the whole concept of wet and dry gas was a bit foreign to me, but then as soon as we're like prospecting new deals, like I suddenly become an expert. I'm like, all right, what's your BTU content? Like 1,500, way too high.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Get out of here.
You learn about mineral rights. You learn about right of way. You learn about pipeline connectivity. You learn about midstream, upstream, and then you get on grid. You learn about like demand response, like the intricacies of different substations and what's a good play and what's not. And there's just, again, it's an endless rabbit hole.
Yeah, man. Even you just mentioned a number of things that I don't even know about. Like, and again, there's like, I want to say it's similar to Bitcoin and just scratch the surface. And it's like, you gotta always, Bitcoin's ruthless. It's ruthless capitalism, as you eloquently just said. You gotta every single day do the work and show up, which is just so amazing. Bitcoin is not a game where you can coast.
No. And it's incredibly rewarding if you do.
If you show up, yeah, absolutely.
Can be financially rewarding up, but I'll just talk about the fulfillment side of things. Like I feel extremely lucky that my life is where it is right now. My wife, my 2 kids, and then I'm able to work on something I'm extremely passionate about. And it's cliche, but it really doesn't feel like I'm working at all.
I had a tweet, I think it was this morning, it was like, wealth is valued in time, not really money, and where you get to spend your time, where you, Marty, get to decide where you spend that time. So like, hopefully we sleep 8 hours, let's say, on average a night. So there's 16 other hours in your day. And where you're doing your quote unquote work, if it's not really work, is amazing. And you can say, let me shut this off. Let me go spend, an hour or an hour and a half walking and seeing the lights with my wife and son. People dream of that freedom, and that is freaking awesome.
Yeah, I mean, technically my job today was to wake up, hop on a flight, and come talk to you. So
Dude,
I can't complain.
And it'll be, I'm definitely coming to Austin as well as Matt and others. And, you and Parker are going to come back, knock on wood, up here in January for a mining meetup, which will be badass. So if anyone's curious about that, go to bitcoinpark.co and RSVP for that. By the way, we've just ripped through this, which has been awesome. I'll close with, I can't thank you enough for having me on your pod.
Stop it.
No,
you always had an open invite. I told you that in like 2019.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I didn't really have anything to talk about, or I think was of value to the community, other than me just like shouting from my porch or whatever. But the number of people like I stopped DMing you screenshots of people reaching out and from that pod of like comments, whether it was, me having more kids than Bitcoin to just talking about mining to running a business on Bitcoin to people to the golf invitational, which we, knock on wood, still working on, which would be pretty badass.
Very excited for that.
I just want to say thank you. It's like people have numbers and potential influence. Like these are people that really listen to your podcast, and there's that feedback loop. I got to experience it firsthand. So there's no real question other than keep doing what you're doing, man.
No, thank you. And I mean, I want to be able to do it without the freaks, right? The audience, the people curious about Bitcoin. That's the way I view it. That's how the newsletter was the first thing I started. It was literally friends, family were curious about Bitcoin. I was like, I know a bit about Bitcoin. I'll share my stupid thoughts about it and let me know what you think. And if they're valuable, I'll produce more. And just took on a life of its own. And I mean, Matt and I say it a lot in Rabbit Hole Recap. We come in and week out because of the community we've built. Rabbit Hole Recap, TFTC, similarly. And no, it's extremely humbling and gratifying just to know that people are getting value out of it, because that's part of the reason I started it, because I didn't have these types of resources when I was first getting into Bitcoin. You had to go on Twitter and bitcointalk.org and decide who you could trust and who you couldn't. And there were some shows, shout out to Vortex for the Bitcoin News Show, and that was valuable. Obviously, Andreas had his thing, but it was a bit boring to me, and I wanted to bring my perspective.
Yeah.
Like I went to prep school, played lacrosse, like a bro's perspective, a barstool-like perspective on Bitcoin. And people have seemed to like it and still like it, which is incredible.
Well, keep crushing it, my man. I get to now say, you want to let the audience know where they can find you?
You can find, at Marty Bent on Twitter, tftc.io. Subscribe to TFTC, Rabbit Hole
Definitely
Recap.
recommend that. Yep.
Just find it, you can find me on the internet.
Find it on the internet. Marty, thank you so much for joining us. This was awesome.
Rod, thank you. It's incredible to be here. We have to go record another podcast.
Let's do it. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Marty as much as I did. Marty's principled approach to money and investing very much reflect the principles present in Bitcoin. If you're enjoying the pod and want to automatically stay up to date, please like and subscribe in your favorite podcasting app. And make sure auto download is on. This would also mean the world to me. Lastly, come visit us in Nashville at Bitcoin Park. The Bitcoin community here in Nashville continues to grow stronger by the day. We hinted at a number of events, pop-ups, workshops, socials, meetups, and even launched Nash BitDevs here at the park. So if you want to be the first to know, join our meetup page at bitcoinpark.co. That's bitcoinpark.co. And check the show notes for this episode for a link to the Bitcoin Park Discord community server. We have over 200 folks in there. Until next time.